place a bit.
Hi. Hello.
Alright, so I know this was a very hard time for you and many tragedies occurred, but I'm going to ask you some questions, and if there's anything you'd like to say, feel free to do so. And I'm going to ask you some questions focused more on the background of the event, and then I'll ask you some more personal questions. Okay, so when did this happen?
Well, on September 8th, 1941, that was when Germany invaded our city, Leningrad.
Okay, how did Germany do this?
Hitler and his army, he decided to attack the Red Army, which helped protect our city.
Okay, and why exactly did they do that?
Well, my grandmother told me that, after they attacked the Soviet Union, the German troops decided to approach Russia. So, and Hitler ordered the German army to attack us because he said that he needed more land for his people. So when they approached the city of Leningrad, they took out the Red Army and surrounded the whole city.
Okay, what did Hitler first do when they surrounded your city?
Well, he bombed us with propaganda leaflets, and I can still remember the day when I was outside playing with my brother and we saw these little white things falling from the sky, and I first thought it was snow, but then I could see that it was paper. And the sheets, they said that if we didn't surrender, that they would starve us to death.
Wow. Okay. So how did your family feel about this?
Well, we didn't know we didn't know how to feel about this. I didn't understand what was going on at the moment, and neither the whole town didn't know what to do. But everyone decided that we shouldn't surrender.
All right. So what happened next?
Well, on November 9th, Hitler then blocked all the transportation of food and supplies so that our city couldn't get anything. His main goal was to starve us and to kill us off one by one until the city would surrender. Hitler also cut off our electricity by bombing the power stations, so we had no light or warmth during the winter. The winter was so cold that many people were dying. People's fingers and toes were breaking off, and it was getting really hard to breathe. And it was probably one of the most It's probably the most pain I've ever felt in my life.
Okay. So how did your city split up the food supplies for everyone?
Well, they did it by social class, by having the soldiers and manual workers getting the most supplies, and then the police officers got what was next, and then lastly, the workers and children, including my family, we got the least, and so we didn't get much food, and we didn't know, though, if we should be grateful for what we were getting, or if they were basically cheating on us, because the city authorities never informed us on how much food there was.
Okay, so how did the people stay alive during the siege?
Well, since we could barely survive with the food that they were giving us, we decided to chop down trees for wood, for fire, for warmth, since we were freezing. And we also made many types of food on our own, since there was nothing, since we didn't get a lot.
Wow, okay. So what kinds of materials did you use for food?
Well, we started hunting dogs and cats, but we ran out of them shortly. So groups of people, including my parents, snuck out of the town to steal potatoes in the fields, which also helped us stay alive.
Okay, so how did this siege finally end?
Well, on December 1941, 35,000 people left Leningrad. So by like 1942, the population was less than 1 million. And since there were barely anyone left, the Germans finally just decide to retreat when the Red Army advanced. The people who led the town during the siege, they were arrested by the KGB, which was from the orders of Stalin. And Stalin thought it was their fault for the siege because they didn't contact Moscow frequently, and they asked for support and guidance. So Stalin, well, they didn't do that. So Stalin believed it was not acceptable for them to work alone. And he also believed that if they asked him, he would have made Germany leave a long time ago and would have been able to save our town.
Okay, so how many people died?
632,000 people died total from the siege, which also included my brother, which was very horrifying for myself.
Okay, after all this occurring, how do you feel?
I was in shock, and I didn't know what to do after all of this ended. My family and I, we moved out of Leningrad because we didn't want to remember those horrifying memories. And when I got older, I just I put this all in the back of my mind, and I never really spoke about it to anyone until now.
Okay, well, I appreciate you telling me your experience on this siege.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I feel more relaxed about myself.
All right. So if you ever need to stop by again, then go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Hi, Dr. Moore.
How are you doing today, Sue?
I'm good.
All right. So you're here to talk to me today about your experience in the rape of Nanjing.
Yes, I am.
Alright, so we're just going to go over some basic stuff about it today, and we'll get more into detail next session, but...
Okay.
So, when did this occur in your life?
This event began in December of 1937, and all the Chinese were taken over and invaded by the Japanese, and we were left with no choices or rights.
Alright, okay. So, do you know what caused the Japanese to invade?
Well, the Japanese decided they needed more land, so they decided to annex different parts of our China, including Nanjing, Manchuria, and Beijing. And all the invasions were horrible, and there were more than 5 massacres that took place.
All right. Okay. So how were you treated, and how were the people around you treated?
Well, the Chinese were treated horribly. We didn't have any choices, and due to the Japanese taking over and controlling parts of our country, they were raping us, beating us, murdering us, and any form of abuse they could come up with, they used. And personally, my experience, I was 15, and I was raped many times and beaten by many different Japanese, but I was lucky to have my life still.
Okay. That can be a very traumatic experience.
Yeah.
So, did you guys ever fight back?
Well, the Chinese, as our whole country, we tried to fight back, and we had much determination not to surrender, but there was nothing that we could do.
Okay. Overall, exactly, how many deaths were there, and how many women were raped?
Well, there was more than 250 to 300,000 people killed, and many more were hurt or raped like me. And if a person wasn't killed, you were captured, or something called looted, or raped, like I said, and just abused. And most of the time, all these led to death, but people like me were the few that still have their life.
Okay. Were there any major events that really stuck?
Well, like I said, there were 5 massacres, and most of them were just the Japanese coming in, hurting us and killing us, but in the end, it led to World War II.
All right. And did this affect like the economy?
Yeah, a lot. It's a tragedy for both countries actually, and the main reason was that Japan and China still have tension today was somewhat cut from the rape of Nanjing, and both countries tried to ignore it to this day because it was so devastating, and China as a country had a big downfall and things went out of control from there.
Okay, and do you know when did this exactly come to an end?
Well, the rape of Nanjing came to an end right before World War II in 1938, and the anger and tension was drawn out into World War II.
Okay, Sue, I think that'll be all for our first session. So overall, I think you have a good understanding of your event, and yeah, we'll try to help next time.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Dr. Moore. It's nice to finally meet you.
Okay, so you called me about your troubles with your past with the bombing of Dresden.
Yeah, it was a pretty traumatic experience.
Alright, so we're just gonna go over like the basics of your experience today, and we'll go off of that next time, but we're just gonna talk a little bit today since it's our first session. So when did the firebombing exactly occur?
Well, I was 17 years old, and it was February 15th in the year of 1945.
Alright, okay, so do you know what caused this event to start?
Well, since Hitler had been ruling Germany, he took over many countries, and this angered Britain and the U.S. And earlier, Hitler was fighting a war on two fronts, and he still was, and Britain and the U.S. just saw this as an opportunity to take action.
Okay, so how long did the United States take to bomb Dresden?
It lasted for 2 days, but it consisted of four raids, and it was from the 13th to the 15th of February.
Okay, what was the effect of the bombing on Germany's land?
It wiped out about 15 square miles of land. It was completely flat. It looked just like a desert. It made me fear things relating with fire and explosions.
Okay, I can understand that. So, how many people do you know how many people were killed?
In all, about 35,000 people died, and many of them I knew. They were my close friends or my friend's family.
Alright, I'm so sorry about that. So I think that'll be all for today. I think we're gonna wrap it up. So we will talk more about this next time.
Okay, great.
It was nice seeing you,
Nice
Holly.
to meet you. Hi, Dr.
Hi, Sue. It's nice to meet you too. Alright, so we're gonna talk about the bombing of Tokyo today. Is that right?
Yeah, I was living in Tokyo at the time.
And this made a lasting effect on you?
It really did. It kind of scared me and gave me a sense of fear in my life.
Okay, that's very understandable. That happens a lot with these events. So, when did the firebombing of Tokyo occur?
It was on March 10th in 1945, about 2 months later than the bombing of Dresden.
Alright, do you know what caused the U.S. to bomb Tokyo?
It was caused by the hatred of the U.S. to our country. We bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941, since then they battled.
Hi, Sue. It's nice to meet you too. Alright, so we're gonna talk about the bombing of Tokyo today. Is that right?
Yeah, I was living in Tokyo at the time.
And this made a lasting effect on you?
It really did. It kind of scared me and gave me a sense of fear in my life.
Okay, that's very understandable. That happens a lot with these events. So, When did the firebombing of Tokyo occur?
It was on March 10th in 1945, about 2 months later than the bombing of Dresden.
All right. Do you know what caused the U.S. to bomb Tokyo?
It was caused by the hatred of the U.S. to our country. We bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941, since then they battled.
All right. Okay, so do you know what exactly caused the U.S. to bomb Tokyo?
It was caused by the hatred of the U.S. to our country. We bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941, and since then the two countries battled back and forth.
All right. Okay. So how long was this event? Like, how long did this event last?
It was on the night of the 10th, and it felt like meteors were crashing down on our city. We were in complete flames.
That's